Network analysis is a method used to investigate and visualize connections and relationships within a network. The approach is very, very effective for several reasons. My name is Alan Cheboy. I'm a senior investigations manager with Code for Africa. I lead our analysis team that conducts network analysis in order to track disinformation and information manipulation. As the name suggests, particularly we use it on social media to track and analyze, crime syndicates and especially organized crime syndicates. Number one is, for example, when you're dealing with the challenge of disinformation, and this enables us to track the key actors that are driving disinformation and information manipulation campaigns, and the tools and techniques that they use to do this, and the narratives that they are attempting to amplify in order to influence public discourse. I can remember, for example, when you want to track coordinated information manipulation or coordinated disinformation, where different actors are copy pasting similar content. And as an example, historically we've tracked coordinated inauthentic behavior originating from social media accounts that were linked to Russia, and the strategies that they use in order to amplify such pieces of content, and also basically what is the end goal. So what are the key narratives that they were trying to amplify, what are the strategies, and what's the larger picture around the disinformation campaign that was being amplified. One other case that was particularly interesting was when tracking disinformation and especially toxic content during the last Kenyan elections. And during the Kenyan elections, we did observe very earlier on that hate speech and disinformation was going rampant on social media, especially on platforms such as Facebook and Twitter. On a practical level, during elections that we've been tracking in Africa, we've been able to identify instances, like, for example, in Mali, and also within the region, within the Sahel region, where we did see that civil society groups who had backing and support from Russian affiliates, whether it's key actors that were trying to amplify or influence conversations in the Sahel in relation to Wagner Group, and the advantages of having Wagner Group in these Sahelian countries. We did earlier on identify that these CSOs were actually creating accounts, and most of them pretending to be media outlets, but essentially they were not real accounts. And these accounts were then being used to actually seed sometimes disinformation, sometimes coordinated influence and campaigns that you could be able to see on platforms such as Facebook, on platforms such as Twitter, as I've mentioned. So platforms such as Telegram and WhatsApp are actually spaces where increasingly they are being used to amplify and spread disinformation. And especially we've actually realized that bad actors are essentially using the dark social media platforms like WhatsApp and Telegram to seed the disinformation content. And that makes it harder for disinformation investigators like ourselves to try and establish where is the first instance of this content being seeded into the information ecosystem. So we do have some ways of trying to look at these platforms, but of course it's not very comprehensive. And we use an approach called the Sentinel approach. And this is basically where we deploy our in-country staff and our partners, and we are able to try and find instances where we can be able to join groups that we believe would be interesting for us to be able to join. One of the key things, especially when it comes to the skills, is you need to start figuring out what's really important when it comes to network analysis. And the whole essence of network analysis is something called data analysis. Data analysis means that you'll need to, as an organization, start to think about, do I need a data analyst in my team? Because this then enables you to be really, really efficient when you're analyzing a lot of data, right? So the one thing you need to do is now find someone who has a skill in order to be able to analyze that big data. The other type of skill is to find people who have a forensic type of mindset. So basically, people who can see patterns in the data, people who can pull out important insights in the data. As you'll see, there is a lot of content, so you need someone who can think critically and be able to actually find the most important information. And a forensic researcher in this case will be able to use, for example, open source intelligence or OSINT, or visual investigation techniques such as the use of satellite imagery, just to find more information about the indicators and the patterns that you're seeing. So that's number one. Number two is you need really enhanced methodologies and frameworks in order to do network analysis. And globally, there have been frameworks that have been developed, and an example is the ABC framework. The ABC framework basically means, actor, behavior, and content. It was developed by one employee at Graphica, and it is actually used to describe and analyze disinformation and influence campaigns from those three levels. So, who is the actor that is spreading disinformation? So, finding that actor is very important. What behaviors are they using? And this basically means the tactics and techniques that they use to manipulate people online. And then what type of content are they trying to push as the third element in order to undermine individuals or organizations? So my personal outlook when it comes to the network analysis field, probably for the next 5, 10 years, 20 years from now, is, there is a lot of talk about the use of AI. A lot of the investigative techniques, and especially when it comes to network analysis, have been reactive. And what that means is that, we've been responding to, disinformation that is already out there, or to networks that have already been created and they're already out there, being operationalized. So for me, I think starting to use AI also as a force for good in terms of how do we do proactive detection? How do we actually enhance the proactive detection of disinformation at an early stage? That is where we want to be. So after mapping the actors that more frequently are being involved in disinformation, or the behaviors that they use, that then enables you to start setting up early warning detection systems. And these systems will kind of then alert you whenever there is a disinformation content or campaign that is starting to gain traction. And that way you counter it as quick as possible. The other thing is, of course, video-based network analysis. As I've mentioned, there are a lot of limitations, but then, emerging platforms such as TikTok are primarily driven by video content. So how do we start figuring out how to do network analysis that are video-based? So that is an important consideration that we need to be thinking about. And finally, predictive analytics, as I've mentioned, will be really important. And developing algorithms, even if it's in-house within different organizations, and collaborating to do that will be particularly important in figuring out how do we improve network analysis investigations and research into disinformation campaigns going forward.